Have you ever been in the middle of sharing something important, something personal, maybe even emotional, and before you can finish your thought, someone cuts you off? They jump in with their own story, their own opinion, or their own correction. It's frustrating, right? You feel dismissed, unheard, maybe even invisible. But here's the thing, people who constantly interrupt others aren't always doing it to be rude. Often, there's a lot more going on beneath the surface. So today we're going to explore the hidden psychology of people who always interrupt, why they do it, what it reveals about them, and how to deal with it without losing your sanity. Let's start with a simple truth. Interruption isn't always about dominance. It's often about insecurity, control, or even anxiety. There are many types of interrupters, and each one has a different psychological drive behind their behavior. Understanding that can help you respond more wisely instead of just reacting with frustration. First, let's talk about the dominant interrupter. This type of person interrupts because they subconsciously need to feel in control of the conversation. They see dialogue not as a shared space, but as a stage. When someone else is talking, they feel like they're losing attention, and that triggers discomfort. They interrupt to reassert authority, to show they're the smartest person in the room, or to redirect the spotlight back onto themselves. These people often have what psychologists call conversational dominance, a trait linked to competitiveness and ego-centered communication. But dominance isn't always born from confidence. It can come from insecurity. The more someone needs to prove they're right or that they know more, the less secure they usually are. Their interruptions are a defense mechanism, a way to mask the fear of being unseen, unheard, or unimportant. It's as if they're saying, if I'm not talking, I don't matter. Then there's the enthusiastic interrupter, the person who jumps in constantly but not out of malice. They're genuinely engaged, excited, and overflowing with thoughts. They can't help but interject because their mind is racing ahead of the conversation. These people often struggle with impulse control or attention issues. Their interruptions aren't personal, they're neurological. They might even finish your sentences because they think they're helping, when in reality, they're unintentionally silencing you. Now, let's talk about the anxious interrupter. These people interrupt not because they want to dominate, or even because they're excited, but because silence makes them uncomfortable. They fear pauses in conversation. Their mind races with, what should I say next? Am I being boring? Will they think I'm not listening? So, instead of listening fully, they're already preparing their next comment. Interruption becomes a form of self-soothing to relieve social anxiety. By filling the silence before it gets awkward, another interesting type is the validation seeker. These people interrupt because they crave connection, but they go about it the wrong way. When you share something, instead of just listening, they jump in with, oh, that happened to me too, or I totally know what you mean. They're trying to relate, but it often comes across as making the conversation about themselves. Psychologically, this comes from a deep need to be understood, to feel part of the conversation. But ironically, their attempt to connect ends up creating disconnection. And then we have the corrective interrupter, the one who can't resist fixing your wording, your facts, or your logic mid-sentence. These individuals often struggle with perfectionism or control issues. They feel uncomfortable when something doesn't align with how they see or understand the world. Their interruption is their way of restoring order, of making things right. But underneath that need to correct lies anxiety and intolerance for uncertainty or imperfection. Now, let's get deeper for a moment. Many habitual interrupters grew up in environments where they had to fight to be heard. Maybe their family was loud, competitive, or emotionally chaotic. Talking over others became a survival tactic. If they didn't speak up fast enough, they were ignored. So now as adults, they've internalized the idea that listening equals losing. They interrupt not to disrespect, but to protect themselves from disappearing. On the flip side, some interrupters were rewarded for being assertive early in life. In fast-paced households or workplaces, cutting in was seen as confidence, not rudeness. Over time, they learned that being the loudest or the fastest talker equals being the leader. What they never realized is that true leadership and real connection comes from listening. It's not overpowering. But let's be honest, chronic interruption can destroy trust in relationships. It tells the other person, what I have to say is more important than what you're saying. Shuts down openness and creates emotional distance. People stop sharing deeply because they learn their voice won't be fully heard. And when that happens repeatedly, the relationship starts to feel one-sided. So, how do you deal with someone who always interrupts you? The key is balance firmness with empathy. You can calmly say, hold on, let me finish my thought, or I'll listen to you in a sec. But I want to finish this point first. Most interrupters don't even realize they're doing it. It's an unconscious habit. By gently naming it, you bring awareness without attacking their character. If you're the one who tends to interrupt, here's something powerful to remember. Listening is not waiting to talk. It's being fully present in the moment, without planning your next line. It's about curiosity, not control. Try practicing the 2-second rule. Wait 2 seconds after someone finishes speaking before you respond. That short pause rewires your brain to listen instead of react. And if you really want to connect more deeply with others, just realize this. People remember how heard they felt more than how smart you sounded. When you listen without interrupting, you give others one of the rarest gifts in the modern world, your full attention. So, the next time someone interrupts you, or you catch yourself cutting someone off, take a breath. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of missing? Or why am I rushing this moment? You might discover that behind every interruption lies something very human. Need to feel seen, secure, and significant. Understanding that doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does explain it. And when we understand, we communicate with more compassion and awareness. If you found this exploration of hidden psychology insightful, and you enjoy diving into the unseen patterns that shape human behavior, make sure to subscribe to PsycheEdge. Join a community that's curious, thoughtful, and committed to understanding the mind on a deeper level. Because the more we understand why people do what they do, the stronger, wiser, and more emotionally intelligent we become.